Tonight, we're debriefing one of the strangest investigations we have ever experienced. We stayed in Lily's room at the St. Francis Inn in St. Augustine, and what started as a classic haunted love story quickly spiraled into something much bigger. We're talking unexplained lights turning on, intelligent responses in the Estes Method, a possible confession from someone who may still be alive, and a message that felt like it came from the future. This one left us drained, shaken, and honestly questioning what we tapped into.
My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And we're paranormal investigators who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia.
Whether we're in the studio
or out in the field,
we hunt for the stories and experiences where the veil feels thin.
Shout out to our Parajunkie family on Patreon. This show is only possible with you.
And remember, this is a judgment-free circle. Your experiences matter, your questions are welcome, and the weird is normal.
So cut the lights, turn the volume up, and journey with us into the most haunted city on earth. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello and welcome to our deep dive / debrief of the St. Francis Inn here on the Most Haunted City on Earth podcast. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And I'm cold.
You're cold?
Yep.
I thought you said you were coal at first.
Yeah.
I was like,
oh, coal.
And I'm like, perfect. We can burn you for warmth.
I was thinking of the name Cole, C-O-L-E, not C-O-A-L.
I have a cousin named Cole, and that is...
Did you burn him for warmth?
No, but he is named after the lump of...
Not after the
what?
lump.
Yeah.
Is he really named after
They're
coal?
from Kentucky and West Virginia.
well.
What do you expect?
Named after the black gold we pull from the mountains.
Yes.
No, coal was
It's partially that, but also for Coleman, but that's because the Coleman was a coal miner.
I thought you were about to say propane, and I was like, stop.
No. So
Another fuel.
There you go.
Cool.
So nonetheless, we're going to talk about our time at the St. Francis Inn. If you did not join us for our live stream, it was a very rambunctious investigation. Peculiar is the only way to describe it. It was nothing like we had anticipated it being. And by the end of the night, all of the Parajunkies and us were exhausted and drained because of what we will tell you about happens soon. And so...
Kind of defies what we normally encounter.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it in an investigation.
It's very strange.
But before we get into that, though, we do have a few new Parajunkies we want to thank. So we want to thank Ashley Blackman, Witta Bitta, Victoria, Kimberly Suzanne Fletcher, JL Hutchins, Sean, Charuti Honeycutt, Laria De Leon, and Amber Jones. So thank y'all so much for joining us on Patreon.
Some of those names I recognize because they renewed.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, I can't tell if it's a renewal all the time, but even if you renew, thank you.
We'll send a shout out.
Yes.
Thank you.
You get a shout out. You get a shout out, and you get a shout out. But yeah, if you want to join us more for live investigations, the Parajunkies joined us all night long at the St. Francis Inn, as they have done for every investigation. It's really cool. Also, we have the evidence lockers. So once we have all of our footage backed up and everything is sorted in the way JT needs it to be, it'll go into the evidence locker so that y'all can also comb through it and see what you find, which is very fun. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into the history of the St. Francis Inn. So, the St. Francis Inn stands as one of St. Augustine's oldest continuously operating accommodations, which honestly is a really big feat, in my opinion, considering how old St. Augustine is.
And how revamped it is.
Right. Yeah. Like, put it this way, it was created in the 1700s. So to be continuously operating since that time, it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah. So its colonial walls, harboring over 2 centuries of history and hauntings, built when Spanish rule still governed Florida, this historic property has witnessed conquests, conflicts, and countless personal dramas, which you'll hear about. Because honestly, something I love about history is when you realize that these were real people and they too had tea to spill. And so it is very fun to hear about drama about people who no longer live on this plane of existence. So those dramas, though, have manifested as persistent paranormal activity. And the building was originally a home to Sergeant Gaspar Garcia. He was a sergeant in the 3rd Battalion of the Infantry Regiment of Cuba, and he got the land lot through a grant by the King of Spain. But he was garrisoned in the Castillo de San Marcos fort, which is, 2 blocks away from the...
Still standing.
Still standing, still conquering. And it's... if you will. But, that did happen to him in 1791. So he built the home during the second Spanish colonial period to be his family's residence. And its architecture reflects the residents' early concern for their own protection and safety, which kind of is like the whole shtick to St. Augustine. Everything is fortified in that town, because if there is one thing that the Spanish conquistadors enjoyed was fortifying. So
they absolutely did.
They really did.
And it's an interesting thing because it's kind of like St. Augustine sits on an inlet a little. And that's one of those interesting viewpoints because it's not right on the ocean. There's an intercoastal waterway right there that kind of breaks up into smaller islands that add to its protective nature. It's the same as Savannah. You have this kind of tucked in so that people aren't just like bombarding you from the sea. You have a little bit of wiggle room there.
It's Savannah. It's true. It was built kind of with war in mind.
Absolutely.
That's why we're on a bluff. Also comes in handy when you have hurricanes, but nonetheless, we're not talking about Savannah in this era. No. In this particular episode.
But the militaristic side of it, like why build the way they did, it's certainly highly defensible.
It is true. So the building stands directly on St. George Street with the main entrance through a courtyard and gate, which was for safety initially. Which that was interesting to me. I just assumed that it was like a nice way to welcome guests to have them pass through a beautiful courtyard when they're going to check in. Apparently, that was just an extra benefit that came with the property. It was built so that you had to pass through a courtyard and a gate to even get to this home's front door when they were living there. But over the years, the name shifted many times. At one point, it was called the Tehan House, the Hudson House, the Valencia Annex, the Amity Apartments, the Salt Air Apartments, the Palms, the Graham House, and known historically as the Garcia Drummett home, but was officially changed in the mid-1900s to officially be the St. Francis Inn.
Wow.
Yeah. So it has been known as many, 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 many things. But which honestly is not uncommon with very old historic properties. It'll go through many changes. There's plenty of buildings.
It's a ton of names.
It is a lot of names.
That's crazy. I just thought it was the St. Francis Inn for hundreds of years.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure St. Francis Street was there for a good long time.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. So in 1802, the property was purchased. So this was kind of the in-between between the sergeant who owned the home and the Drumetts who ended up making it kind of what we know it as now. So that in-between owner was Juan Rugieres, who was a sea captain, and he owned the property in 1802 until the Drumetts bought it in 1838. So in that time, it became the property of Colonel Thomas Henry Drumet of Barbados, and an officer in the British Marines, and a sugar plantation owner. He did it all. And escaping an insurrection in Barbados, Colonel Drumet and his family arrived in St. Augustine and moved into the home. After his death in 1845, his daughter Anna converted the house into a lodging establishment. So that was how we ended up getting it more as an inn, was because Anna was like, well, now I need to make money. And considering that at this point it was the Civil War, I think in her logic, she was like, oh, I'll provide housing to all these soldiers and I'll make buckets loads of money. That was not the case. But regardless, it did survive at the very least. But she mostly wanted this to be a means of supporting herself. And just a fact about her, she was an avid supporter of the Confederacy, even though that kind of fizzled out.
So, you think?
Yeah. Well, at least in St. Augustine, it fizzled out. So she was kind of left in the shadows for that one. But she stuck by it, which interesting fact about Anna. Anyways, so in 1888, John L. Wilson, a prominent philanthropist, purchased and renovated the inn, adding the mansard roof and the third floor. So that's why Lily's room.
Okay.
Technically, Lily's room was the attic, but regardless, that is why we have a third floor in the inn now. And so this is the structure as it now stands. That is the only added element of the inn. And so in 1948, the name did officially become the St. Francis Inn on all regards. And that leads us into our paranormal side of the history.
Cool.
So it is believed that the ghost of a young house servant haunts the St. Francis Inn. She has become known as Lily. And strange happenings reported in one third floor inn room, and it led to it being named Lily's room. Now, I couldn't really find anywhere that would pinpoint why her name became Lily. It doesn't seem like necessarily that was her official name. But then again, enslaved individuals were not very well documented during these times. And so it's not uncommon for an English name to be assigned to an enslaved individual. And it could be that, but it also could be at some point somebody came through and they picked up on the name Lily and it just kind of stuck.
And in certain instances, it's not completely certain that she was a slave.
Right.
She could have just been a servant of the house and it was a question of class rather than a question of slave and slave owner. There's so much vagary.
There's a lot of
Lily's
vagary.
Story. Yes.
Which it is not uncommon,
No.
especially with inns, and especially inns that have a resident spirit, like a woman who just happens to fall for a man and it's forbidden love. It's very similar.
Which is, a story you hear at almost every historic inn.
Exactly. It reminds me a lot of the 1790 inn here in Savannah.
Right, because sometimes that character is the wife of the house and sometimes it's a servant. In rare occasions, it's a slave, but it's fascinating because that's a full spectrum. Because sometimes she falls in love with a German sailor, and sometimes it's just a matter of what branch of the story tree you end up hanging from.
Yeah, and all of that to say, every single one of those options could be very possible.
Oh, absolutely.
And so at the very end of the day, she's a female spirit that is prominent on the property, and she seems to respond to Lily, so we'll take it. Yeah. And we'll take the story with a grain of salt and at least fun folklore. So she had become known as Lily, and strange happenings reported in one third floor in room, which led to it being named Lily's room. That is where we stayed. And the story that is told is of a young man who was stationed at the fort. And at the time, he lived with his uncle, Major William Hardy. And so he was living in the home because of that, especially considering the home is literally right next to the fort. So it makes sense that he'd live there. And so Major Hardy owned the inn during the middle of the 19th century. And the young man fell in love with Lily, one of the young servant girls. She was believed to have been a beautiful enslaved woman from Barbados. Now, I only saw that one time that she was from Barbados, and that could be because the Drames were from Barbados, and so it just became associated.
Part of the lore, right.
That she was, but that also would not necessarily be implausible.
No.
That she'd be from Barbados, but that's what I'm going to roll with because that seemed to be the only pinpoint I could find. So they would sneak into rooms of the inn to carry on their secret love affair. And when Major Hardy walked in on the lovers, he dismissed the servant and ordered his nephew to never see her again.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. The nephew, deeply depressed, committed suicide, some say by hanging himself in the attic, which is now Lily's room. Others say by jumping from the 3rd floor window. I'm going to go with hanging. One, because we did get a response at one point.
Yes.
That was of someone saying that he died by hanging in the room.
Yeah.
And also, the reason why I say that is because that building is not tall enough.
It really isn't.
That even if you jumped from the 3rd floor, you probably will not die. You might be very injured.
Maybe.
Unless you land on your head onto
you have to land
brick.
on your face and then your butt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was during an Estes method with you, right?
Yes.
That was insane.
Yeah, literally.
Because, Chris, what happened?
It was simultaneous.
Yeah.
Like I was saying that a man had hanged himself, and right as I got to the word hanged, Madison was on the Estes method, and she said hung. Like right at that exact moment. It was definitely one of those like, okay, that you can't even orchestrate that well, you know. It was that was insane. We had a lot of like hair stand up moments.
We did. Like more than usual ghost hunts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I considered this one a little bit smaller, you know, I mean, we've been to Waverly and the Rylander and all of that stuff. Those were big ones. I consider this one to be a little smaller, but I mean, this is one of the most haunted locations we ever visited, in my opinion.
At least the most responsively haunted.
Right.
That's what I mean.
That may have to do with size. It may have to do with the fact that when you're in a big property or when you're in a place that has so many different places, you're really not digging in, right?
Sure.
And we did the Estes method the second night of staying there. You had a full 24 hours in the space, which, you know, gives spirits more time to like acclimate themselves to you and try to communicate with you.
I didn't even think about that.
Oh, I did. Because I think...
Like we marinated a little.
We didn't marinate. Well, and I think that room in particular, it might just be the nature that the spirits have already just become accustomed to having transient energy coming into the room, because I can only imagine that room stays booked pretty often.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, and that's the other like notion of haunted locations, the amount of people who are consistently trying to access the energy and promote the energy gives the energy more power to draw from.
And this particular soldier spirit, in my opinion, felt the most prominent in the room. I know that technically it is supposed to be Lily's room, and Lily might have been there at some point in an Estes, but it seems like overall he was the dominating spirit for when we were there.
And we had a long conversation about that as well, because according to legend, and the only stories I've ever heard suggest that Lily was sent away. So Lily didn't die in the building. Lily didn't continue her work in the building. Lily went off somewhere else, and then her lover hanged himself in the attic. And that raises that question, is like, when she died, did she come back to the building hoping to find him, hoping to find his spirit? Yeah. When she found out that he had passed, what was her response? Did she take her life? We don't know. I've never gotten a solid hit on why Lily is the ghost that everyone kind of attaches to, because they do talk about the soldier. A lot of people, I mean, that is one of the resident ghosts of the building, but he is definitely not the main character in most ghost stories. Most ghost stories linger on Lily and this, you know, tragic love story and her presence in the building. But it did seem that it was more him trying to communicate.
Yeah.
The answers that we're getting in the Estes method were far more indicative of him versus Lily.
Well, and I will say, from the very moment we walked into the room, when you first, like at first blush, you know, try to examine the energy of a room, it definitely felt more leaning towards a masculine energy, and that surprised me. Now, mind you, I went into this absolutely blind. I literally knew nothing about the history of this property on purpose because we wanted to see what would happen if that were the case, because typically I do the research before we go there. But yeah, I just thought, I did know that there was of some sort a female spirit that was supposed to be a part of this story of the property. I just did not necessarily pick up on her. And I particularly was creeped out by a photo of a male soldier
There's
hanging in the room.
A really creepy picture of a soldier in the room.
And it stares at the bed.
Yeah, it's
it's so creepy. Like, I swear, multiple times we'd be watching like Netflix on the laptop or something, and I'd feel like I saw the eyes of that photo move. And I'd be like, oh, this is so creepy, regardless, though. We'll talk more about that in a second.
And to hotel owners and bed and breakfast owners, don't put human portraitures in the bedrooms.
Yeah.
It's so very creepy.
It is.
I mean, going to sleep with like some austere woman like glaring at you as you're trying to fall asleep. That's just
like her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see them all the time. They'll put like, oh, well, she was the original owner of the house. Oh, no, I don't want her in my room.
Like, put her in the lobby.
I'm going to be naked in this room.
Put her in the breakfast area.
Yes, right. Put her in the hall.
Yeah.
Let people like admire her in the public settings. Don't put her in my room facing the bathroom door, is all I'm saying.
And especially, too, if it was the soldier who died in the room, even freakier, which I have no confirmation if that is who that is. Not entirely implausible because of when he died, there would have been the possibility.
But even the fact that a soldier died in the room and they put a soldier's picture there, it doesn't actually matter whether it is the soldier in question, because spirits are very quick to assume identities based on what they can manipulate and where they can be. If you can see the body of a soldier, and it's like, yeah, that's me, I'm the soldier. Spirits work in metaphor. They work in symbols and symbology. And you give a picture of a soldier, and it's like, oh, there's a soldier ghost. That ghost will do everything in its power to emphasize its existence, and you've just given it the perfect vehicle. So it's sitting there in your brain like, oh, there's a soldier, and there's supposed to be a soldier's ghost. I wonder if that's him.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter at that point.
It's like, correct.
Yes.
It's his eye.
It's his eye.
But yeah, so for many years, inn guests and employees have reported apparitions in Lily's room and in other parts of the inn. Some have seen her passing in the hall, all dressed in white, which piqued my curiosity when I heard that, because I was like, we might be mistaking or associating a person who was involved in this home, involved in some drama that occurred in this home, and attaching it to a woman in white spirit that may or may not even be anything to do with Lily, but because there is a prominent female presence that once was here, anytime someone sees a female spirit that they can't identify, they just immediately gravitate to the only thing they can actually grasp for that's documented to a degree. And,
in general encounters, when people see a woman in white, they do not normally ascribe it to like the owner. The usually owners of mansions and buildings, women, is a lady in brown.
Yeah.
They'll see a lady in a brown dress, and that becomes a very common thing, or even a lady in gray. Those kinds of things. But when you see a lady in white, you oftentimes ascribe it either to a young woman who's lost their love. That's a classic, woman in white, or a young woman who's lost their children, which, gives that La Llorona kind of sensation to it. But yeah, it would be odd to have the lady in white kind of operate in people's vision and mind, and then they say, oh, well, that was Lily. It's like, are you sure? Because we are still on the debate of, was Lily a slave or was she a servant? Because the one thing that always stood out in the story, because I've heard the story dozens of times over the past few decades, it always says that she was dismissed. And you generally don't dismiss a slave. You don't fire a slave. You don't send a slave away. It's like, I don't know, because it always sounded like what they did was they barred her from working
in the building.
in the building. And it's like, well, what exactly does that mean? it often just felt like they fired her, right, and sent her away. But because I want to say like the first, few times I heard the story, they weren't using the word slave; they were using the word servant. And then I started hearing slave, and I was like, oh, well, that kind of changes a lot of the dynamics of the story. However, it also creates kind of this weird. Another thing that I noted is that I've never heard the soldier's name, the lover's name. Mm-hmm. They know the lover's uncle's name.
Right.
They know Lily's name.
I thought
but
that was
they
weird
can't give us a name for the soldier, even a made up one.
Right. Yeah, like Steve.
Right.
But
Steve the soldier.
Well, actually, didn't Steve come through later? That's why I think I'm thinking that.
Yeah, Steve did come through at one point.
Wait till you hear about Steve's confession at the crack of midnight or whatever that happened. But yeah, I thought that was weird too, that they did not have a name for him, but they knew he was the nephew of the owner. But also, I think there's a caveat here where in the South particularly, it can get a bit muddied when it comes to people who might have been enslaved in some capacity.
Oh, absolutely.
Because a lot of times in southern cities, they will call them servants. Mm-hmm.
Savannah was notorious for it for decades. Servants' quarters, the servants, were always referred to as servants and not slaves. It was really just in recent history that
it just like gussies it up a little bit and makes it feel
assuages guilt.
Yeah, yeah, and so I think that might be where it is getting kind of intermingled, like they are synonymous with each other. But Chris is right; there is a difference in how either one of those would be handled in a situation.
Right. Because you'd even think that, they would go as far as to say they sold her.
Right.
There's language there that would be more indicative. And you really don't hear about the St. Augustine slave trade all that much. That's not a big part of their history. So it does come up time and time again that we're questioning how to approach the spirits, right? We're being given all this information, and generally speaking, the lady in white that people see, not black.
Yeah.
Because you would usually say a black woman in a white dress.
Right. Well, and it's interesting too, because if you think about it just in the way that the situation was handled, if you really think about it in the mindset of historically what people would have thought, if a enslaved woman had relations with a white nephew of an owner, that's a big deal in a household. And I feel like there would have been more extreme repercussions.
Sure. Which would have lent more credence to Lily being in the building.
Right, exactly. Versus I do feel more on the side of she was a servant of some capacity, and that's why she might have been sent to another home or something, just sent away.
Yeah. Right.
Regardless.
Or dismissed. Yeah, because that's the word they always say, dismissed.
Dismissed.
And
dismissed
I'm like,
from her duties.
Dismissed is not something that coincides with my understanding of slavery.
And so some believe that she returns to find her lover. One housekeeper tells of a story that she was listening to MTV on the television while cleaning Lily's room. And when she returned from getting clean sheets in the hall, the television was turned off. She jokes that Lily didn't like MTV.
That's fair.
That's fair. Just like from our experience, electronics in that room are very susceptible to being manipulated by whatever is in that room. Because we had encounters of that we will talk about in a second. So, there we go. Okay. So a woman staying in Lily's room was once awakened by a loud noise, and when she got up to check, she found the contents of her pocketbook scattered across the floor. But nothing was missing, and she said that the thud was too loud to have been merely the sound of the purse falling. That one I thought was interesting because JT and I also heard very loud bangs and thuds and whatnot in the room, but nothing moved, nothing happened from what we could see. And so it was very alarming because it would be quite sudden. And we're like, how did nothing occur? How can we not find the source of
there
this?
needs to be a source for that level of sound.
And especially because it would often be at the foot of the bed, too. But in another occurrence, a new bride was awakened by a passionate kiss and then surprised to find her husband was sleeping soundly beside her. So
that's a pretty classic hotel ghost, too. And it's usually a woman kissing a man.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that it's the other foot. But it does fit with what we were saying, that it seems to be the domain of the man who hanged himself more than the domain of Lily.
Right, exactly. And then in other reports include sightings of a hand on the railing of the back stairs, a ghostly figure dressed in white passing in the halls, split-second sightings of spirits, frequent sounds of whispering and moans, lights and coffee makers going on and off, unassisted, radio stations being changed as witnesses watched, locked doors found open, shower water which comes out hotter and hotter no matter how much cold is added, falling books, moving pictures, icy cold touch, covers being removed, and female and male apparitions. Some psychics who have been to the inn conclude that Lily and her lover have not been united in the afterlife within the inn that they both haunt. And in this account, and a man and his wife were staying at the inn, but in another room that was not Lily's room. And his wife fell asleep quickly, but he had trouble. So a strange sensation overcame him suddenly, which he said felt like someone was entering his consciousness without seeming either good or evil. He left the room to see if a short walk would help, then returned to bed, only to have the same feeling. And he attempted to allow it to become stronger, which I'm like, so he's a ghost person. After what he thought was a long time, he shook off the feeling and went for another walk and some coffee, which I suppose that's a way to defeat insomnia. But finally returning and able to fall asleep. Many of the recalled paranormal events at the St. Francis Inn had been described as friendly, though sometimes mischievous, but never harmful. So for that guy, I have theories of what he might have been experiencing just solely based off of what we experienced. And I'll bring that back up when we tell you the odd Estes that we had, especially down in the lobby.
Once we
area.
left Lily's room, it got unhinged.
Yeah. Now, many describe the apparitions as being pleasant, not disturbing. The innkeepers encourage guests actually to share their paranormal encounters during their stay. So it's a very paranormally friendly place, which I'm sure aids to the ability for these spirits to be able to communicate.
They sell ghost hunting equipment in the lobby.
They do. Yeah. And a number of paranormal investigators have visited St. Francis Inn and reported happenings indicating several spirits inhabiting the inn. Marlene Blanchard, an investigator with Left Field Paranormal Studies and Investigations, concluded several studies of paranormal activity at St. Francis Inn with positive results, including visual phenomena recorded on video. The report included a video camera being turned off, a pocket watch stopping at the exact time the video camera stopped, cell phone not being able to hold its charge in the suite, still camera photography, multiple orbs, and repeated knocking/rapping heard with source not able to be located. So also recorded in this study, this is a direct quote, approximately at 2:15 a.m., a tall, slender Hispanic male, dark, wiry hair, pulled back in a short ponytail, dressed in a white, silky shirt and dark trousers, appeared on the left side of the room. He paced back and forth in the space between the bed and the dressing table from the window to the open door leading to the sitting room. He exited the door leading to the sitting room, and an older man dressed in brown with a brown tri-cornered hat appeared from the left side of the room, walked on through to the sitting room. Neither seemed to be aware of the two people in the bed. Now, that was my last piece of research that I was able to find, and I will tell you, we experience that first, what I'm assuming is that first spirit that this person is talking about, because on our first night, it was a rather sleepless night because it sounded like somebody pacing back and forth. I happened to be sleeping on that side of the bed next to the to the drawing table, basically, that was in that corner. Mm-hmm. And it sounded like somebody was pacing back and forth, scribbling on the table, like almost like a quill, like scratching, like someone's writing rapidly.
I got it on tape.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah, it woke JT up like 5 times.
Yeah, it was like 4 times. I believe it was like the actual number is 4 times. And I, it was knowing that we were going to stay up late the next night doing the investigation, I was kind of pissed off. And what really pissed me off the most was when I would try to reach over to my phone to record it because it was on this shelf. When I did that, it would stop. And then I'm like, so is it a mouse? Is it something like under there scratching wood? Because it was in the room. It wasn't in the wall. Like I heard it very, very, very clearly. So I was like, I need to look under the bed the next day and look for scratch marks. Of course, there's no scratch marks. And so I thought it was a mouse. And then on my 4th time, it was like late 4 a.m., early 5 a.m., I said out loud, I was like, Lily, if that's you, I'm not mad at all. I just want to record what you're doing. Is that cool? And I reached over to the phone, and after I said that, it kept scratching, and I was able to actually get a recording of it.
Well, and put it this way, I sleep like the dead. I will sleep through anything, and it woke me up.
Yeah.
That's how loud it was. And we had a audio recorder going all night, and it picked it up too. And it would have these like intermittent thumps that would pass by every once in a while, and then it would soon be the scribbling. So when I read this from another investigator, that was her finding, I thought that was interesting. So I was like, okay, so this is a common experience that people have in this room. But yeah, so let's talk about our investigation in more depth.
So the night before was the scratching, but we also it was right before we were going to bed, and this was around midnight, right before we were going to bed. There we heard something at the foot of our bed, like thud, and there was nothing. I think I had a shirt on a chair. There was like not much on chairs, not much elevated to fall, and so I got up and I looked for anything on the floor. There was nothing on the floor because I was worried that if it wasn't a ghost, I'm like, oh, crap, is that like a camera? Is that something that I have, on a desk or something? Nothing. There's nothing on the floor.
Nothing
other
than
our suitcase.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and the thing is we put a lot of our stuff into the closet in the room because we knew we were going to be investigating the next night. So we were trying to like make sure everything stayed contained so that on camera it's not, like a bunch of random things that are not pertinent to the investigation. And so, yeah, it was just weird.
Yeah. I thought that I left something on the foot of the bed and it fell off the foot of the bed.
It did not. There. No. Yeah, the scratching noise was definitely the most obvious encounter. Just because it was so clear, it was so loud, and we ended up posting it on Patreon. I think. Yeah, we posted on Patreon. And I know a lot of people were saying like, "Oh, it might be a mouse. It might," which is what we thought too. Don't worry, but we were like, after looking back and hearing some of y'all's thoughts, we were like, no, that's got to be something. Like there's just no reason for it.
Because it was more drawing than scratching.
Yeah.
It was more like something's drawing.
Right, you have a rhythm to writing.
Right.
Yeah. You have that.
Yes. Yep.
That it's got a pattern to it.
Yeah.
Yep.
and it was a little frantic.
That was night 1, and then night 2, things got even crazier.
Things got weird quickly. I think, like, of the first half of the investigation, while we were in Lily's room, one of the craziest things was when the sconces on the wall just lit up.
I feel like if we had an intelligent an intelligent life form here, they would really be able to communicate well with us.
G J S N. This is so cool.
It's so cool.
If you guys have any questions in the comments here, feel free to type that.
Whoa.
What the?
Where's the light switch? Where's the light switch?
Right there. It's right there.
Whoa.
So the lights, that was goodbye. It's just said goodbye. We all got that on camera. Okay.
Yes.
Really exciting.
What?
Whoa. Wait. Yes. So bright out of nowhere.
All the lights were off, and then boom, sconces came on.
Yeah.
And that was one of those things, because that is a common, even in your research reading, electronics going on, electronics going off. It's just really a classic kind of, paranormal event, is to have electricity interrupted in some way or interacted with in some way.
Exactly.
It was so exciting because that type of stuff. I mean, I'm not gonna say it never happens, but it's rare.
It's super rare.
It's rare to get it on camera.
Yeah, because it was like 11:30 or something. We're aiming the and if you are just listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can switch over to video so you can see what I'm talking about. But basically, we got it on tape. We're aiming the camera at the sconces, and Megan is talking at the time the right of the bed, and out of nowhere, the lights just turn on. And I showed my dad, and Dad's like, is it on a timer? And I'm like, at 11:30 pops? No, it's not on a timer. And we
also would have figured that out the night before if these lights were timed in any capacity, because we would have at least been able to be like, oh, it did that before, but it did not. And it was on a dimmer. So it was like you literally had to turn the knob to turn it up.
Yes.
So
crazy.
And it was
we tried to replicate it many times over the course of the night.
Yeah. Well, and it was weird too, because we had been trying to get it to utilize the Ouija board light bright machine, illumination station machine. And it was having a field day with that.
Yes.
So it was very clear that was the...
Which is fascinating, because we've done it several times in the museum with no response.
Right.
Not even a little. So having it go off so consistently and regularly at the St. Francis Inn was amazing.
Yeah. And I think that is something, if any of y'all listening to this are going to go and try to investigate it yourself, I would definitely recommend bringing multiple options of electronic items that it can manipulate as a form of communicating.
Yep.
Because that seems to be the mode that it's able to manipulate the best. Although we did get some very good Estes sessions, it definitely felt more geared toward it was enjoying using something like the illumination station.
Yeah. It touched a lot of letters.
Well, yeah.
Ghosts were in there just touching that board. It was crazy.
Well, and that's really, is dependent on different types of entities. Some entities, it is easier for them to communicate through some sort of electrical pulse or output. Sometimes it is easier to communicate through a spirit box or something. Sometimes it's easier for them to use the spirit chat. The spirit chat was pretty radio silent, no pun intended. Yeah, in the room at least. Yeah.
Yeah, we did have some pretty stellar chime-ins from the spirit chat. We had Attic.
Yeah.
Which was like one of those
yeah.
That was for sure. But the Estes method with the hanging, that was just crazy, because I'll go ahead and we'll be playing it right here.
According to lore, Lily was banished from the house because she was having an affair with the son of the owner. The son became so despondent and heartbroken that he killed himself. According to legend, he hanged himself in the attic.
Oh shoot! I just got chill bumps.
Oh my gosh!
No.
Oh my gosh!
It was a bad day.
Oh my god! Okay.
So the question is, are we speaking to Lily or the lover?
Yeah.
The lover.
We're speaking to the lover.
It said male.
Can I film these chill bumps? Like, I got.
Show me.
Yeah, it was incredible because it was one of those moments that you're kind of hoping will happen. There would be some kind of synchronistic, meetup of the Estes Method and what you're talking about, and that was like simultaneous. It was very dramatic. It was a dramatic moment.
Yeah,
Really was.
And it was a weird set. A few of the SD sessions that we did in the room were odd. Because it felt like, specifically, once we put on the ion.
Yeah, that's right.
The ion generator.
Generator.
Was great.
It was like the bat sign or signal or whatever
it was.
to the ghosts. So they all just appeared in the room, apparently, because
I'm not feeling well all of a sudden.
Oh.
I'm going to take a short break.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to?
Okay. So, brief intermission for Chris. But yeah, Megan was there too. So Megan has plenty of awareness of how this particularly went. But yeah, when the ion generator got turned on, it was like a bunch of new spirits just decided to enter the chat, if you will, because it was weird. It got weird.
Well, you guys, it was interesting because you guys, when it turned on, I think you and Chris specifically were like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge blocker, so I'm like, nothing.
Right.
But like you guys could feel it. Like there was a difference for you when it got turned on, right?
Yes.
JT, was there a difference for you when the ion generator turned on?
Yeah, like when you said you feel it in your sinuses, I did feel that my sinuses cleared a little bit. Like maybe some pressure, like light pressure.
Oh, I felt it hard.
Yeah.
And maybe I wasn't close to it. I don't know if I got near it at any point necessarily. So I just got nothing from it.
I mean, I was very close to it, and it was mostly on the side of my head that was near the machine, but it felt like, when you are in an airplane and your ears really need to pop.
Sure.
It was
my
like
least
that.
favorite sensation, actually.
Yeah, it was not fun, but it at
makes
least
those spirits feisty.
It made them feisty because a man that we only know as Gus, because that is how he called himself, Gus, was weird. I don't fully know what Gus was talking about because I was in the SE session, but Gus, I can count on one hand how many times the spirit has touched me during an SE session. And Gus did it twice in one session.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah.
And we pulled you out pretty quick after the second time. It's like, one's okay, but the second time, no, Gus, hands off our girl. Like, leave her be.
Yeah.
We're going to pull her out. Because you were like, if any of you just touched me, like, I felt that. But if it wasn't you guys, something's touching me.
Yeah.
Okay, no, we don't like that.
Yeah, well, because it was just odd sensations. And if you've never been touched by a spirit, it's a very particular feeling. I kind of say it's akin to like a butterfly fluttery sensation where it almost tickles, but it's weird feeling. Like it just is like, ooh, it makes your skin crawl a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. And so this dude literally, from what I felt, took his little ghost hand and grabbed right here at the nape of my neck and pulled my hair just
Could
like
you imagine
slightly.
if it was one of us doing that? Like you're in the SEs and we're just like hee like no.
Well, exactly. Like there was no reason for any of you to literally go under my hair through the wires because I'm wearing big ass headphones.
No, we're careful not to touch you at all.
Yeah,
because it can get freaky. Even tapping people out of it, like it makes freaky because you're in the zone,
right? And then the second time, it was like a hand came out from the headboard and touched me right here onto the back of my arm. Literally. Well, and it was like in my brain, because Chris was sitting next to me, but I was like, there's no way he bent
He,
his
was,
arm
out
like
here,
that.
Poking you in the back.
That would be bizarre.
Ridiculous.
Super.
Yeah, and so that after the elbow touch was when y'all pulled me out. But
Yeah. We weren't going to leave you in there to be harassed
by
a
Gus. Gus. It's just like,
I apologize to any Gus's listening to this right now.
yeah, it's he was just gross, and he had this just god awful molassesy swamp accent.
Yeah.
And it was just like where he was like, that's what he sounded like coming through the spirit.
Like garble almost?
Yeah, it was garbled, and I'm just like, I'm trying to think of like, honestly, I get amnesia after I do an SE session. Don't ask me anything that I said because I probably don't know fully. Like, I'll get an idea.
What was he talking about? Was it about a girl?
Oh, he was talking about all types of stuff. Like, I mean,
He was trying to take somebody on a date. Like, he was talking.
Yeah.
You remember?
I don't remember specifically, like all the different things he was talking about, but we were trying to get rid of him.
Yeah.
Like, we were kind of like, okay, Gus, well,
Okay,
next.
go away. Very weird. Yeah.
And then we left. Then we left the room and we went downstairs to the first floor, and we did an Estes Method there, and not much happened in the dining room, right?
No, we got a whole full blown confession
From somebody who was maybe still alive.
maybe still alive.
No. That was I wasn't talking about the parlor. I was talking about the dining room. Like
That
we
was
went
in the
down
dining room.
That was in the dining room.
Yes.
Okay, wait, remind me. So
Yes.
I was like
So the
operating
first
4 different
Estes
cameras.
within the dining room, Madison went under, and we got the confession. A gentleman feeling so guilty, so upset. He was saying that he was drunk, and this child died in a car, and we were like,
Yes.
"What's?"
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
this Estes threw every other Estes out of my mind because I was like, "Wait, we're conversing with someone alive," and the reason we thought he was alive was because Chris asked for a name.
Omar and Steve.
Right.
Yes.
So Chris is like, what's the name? And Madison in the Estes says Long. And he's already had Googled names and had found an Omar Long before asking for the name.
Yes.
So when Madison said Long, and I did a bunch of research at that very moment to say, is this man dead? He's still alive and in prison for, I believe, getting drunk, going in his house, getting drunk with the child in the car who then died.
Yep.
In St.
I
Augustine.
remember that now.
Yes.
And what is your name? Can you tell us your name?
Horrible.
Very horrible.
Long.
Long.
Can you tell us who we're speaking with?
Wait. It's Omar Long is the name.
No, it is not Omar Long.
Is he alive?
Omar Long. That is the name of the man who killed his child in a heated car, but it doesn't look like he's dead.
Okay. That's crazy, but okay.
And so maybe his guilt was so
Deep.
and lingering. Like, you don't have to be dead to haunt.
Yeah.
Sometimes a strong emotion lingers in the air.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
that
knows?
was nuts.
It could have just been in one of those houses near the hotel, even.
Right.
Who
Well,
knows?
and the thing is a part of me thought maybe that this man was, because it was late. Like most people on a Wednesday night, or it was Wednesday, right? Wednesday or Thursday?
Wednesday night.
Wednesday night.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Wednesday night.
On a Wednesday night this late, usually people are asleep. And so there is a chance that he could have been astral projecting, and we were somehow able to tap into that.
Yeah.
And he was able to converse. So I was like, this man's literally going to wake up the next morning and be like, I had the craziest dream last
we're talking
night.
about
Some crazy woman in a dining room. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about Omar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Omar Long. It
Omar
was
Long.
very peculiar. We were asking for the name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it came through, and it was so bizarre because it was such a tragic story, but it was so constant.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't break.
Yeah.
There was never a time when because sometimes in Estes Method you get a little confusion.
Yeah.
You know, the narrative comes through in spurts, but this was the entire thing. We heard it,
Yep.
Yeah.
nonstop, which was a very remorseful man, very, he talked about his drinking problems, how he couldn't drink anymore. And then when we were looking it up, the statement, in fact, was that he had drinks the night before, and that is why he went back to sleep.
Yep.
And again, all of those things just came together too conveniently to ignore, because the unfortunate nature is, it's a tragic event that could have happened in any number of places in any number of configurations, but it definitely did seem to be, corroborated through what we were researching in real time.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like that was a first for us as well, to feel like we are conversing with somebody who might still be alive.
Absolutely.
I don't think we've ever had an SCs where that happened, but it is possible, because that's the whole concept of, when we sleep, where do we go?
Right.
And
also the notion of residual haunting is simply an energy pattern that repeats itself. So you do not have to be dead to haunt someplace that you had some high emotional trauma in. Your trauma can cling to a space. And you could be walking around somewhere, but some traumatic event from your past is replaying over and over again because of the outpour of emotion, because of the spike of the energy, because of the nature of the space. So it does kind of touch upon something that we had mentioned and talked about times before. But here we were attempting a paranormal communication, and we ended up with what seemed to be a living human being and his deep, deep regret. And how that has manifested as an energy that you can, pick up on like a radio station.
It's true. And speaking of picking up on things like a radio station, our final STs of the evening, that was just so draining for everyone, even the para-junkies who were still with us. It was so weird.
Fully bizarre.
Like, to the point where I was like, the next day, are we going to be on some kind of list? Like,
It was definitely one of those things where it's like, I'm even hesitant to like go into too many details
of it
because it felt like we were eavesdropping. It felt like we were listening to something that we should not have been listening to, and it felt like it was top secret correspondence regarding international, if not dangerous information. But even more so, there came a point at which it seemed as though we were speaking to someone possibly from the future.
Yeah.
That we were getting future notice, because it all started with kind of this notion of the person being starving.
Yep.
A person who had starved, who was hungry. So we were thinking maybe it was a Depression era thing or something like that. But they spoke of remembering things like cheeseburgers and remembering things that were modern conveniences. And that made it feel really strange. And then they talked about like a war and nukes and all these things that made it seem as though they were living in some kind of post-apocalyptic world.
Through Megan.
And it was all coming through Megan. And Megan and the Estes Method don't have like a long run of success. But this was so communicative. It was so many words. It was so many direct answers. Right. As a matter of fact, there was a point while Megan was doing this that I was like, I'm going to turn off the ion generator. I picked it up to turn it off. I put my finger on the button and immediately it was like, don't do that.
Yeah.
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 And it was just like, oh, okay. How weird. Because it would seem to be a direct response to my actions and a direct recognition that something was going on, that something was happening. And it definitely felt like there was a lot of talk about the Middle East. There was a lot of talk about sort of like impending trouble.
A supervisor maybe listening.
Exactly. Right. That
like
there was somebody listening, that there was, that they were not at liberty to just disclose who they were or what was happening, which, again, just sounded like anything you've ever heard of, like remote viewing communications on high level government. Like, if we put our tinfoil hats on, we could really dive into how very unnerving It was.
It was super unnerving. And we kept asking over and over and over again for a name. And it was so hesitant to give us a name. And eventually it was like, okay, Alfred.
Right.
And we're like, okay, we'll run with that, you know.
I'll take it.
But yeah, it was just super, super strange. Like it was giving Project Stargate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Project Stargate. It was definitely the sensation of it had we were not meant to hear this. Like it definitely felt like we stumbled onto something. Like we were playing with the radio channel and landed on an encoded message. It definitely felt like there was a point at which two voices were talking to one another, completely independent of us. They were answering each other's questions, and like we tried to clarify, but it definitely wasn't interested in what we had to say.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting. But it was one of those things where it seemed like the whole night seemed to be progressing towards it, where we were talking to something from the past, we were talking something from the present, and then it seemed like we were talking to something from the future. Like we were utilizing these equipments and these patterns in order to cross through this veil. And the veil was not living in the dead, it was time.
Yeah.
And this brought up all kinds of questions because like my brain was melting during that conversation because I'm like, what is the implication here? What are we dealing with really if this is messages from the future? I mean, there was even things that were being said that reminded me of a man who claimed to be a time traveler, John Titor, who claimed to be a time traveler, and he went on to the radio show Coast to Coast. And he actually outlined how he built his, or not even how he built, because he didn't build it. It was just his time machine. He explained how it worked, what kind of controls there were. He promised all kinds of interesting things. And it was fascinating because at the time he was doing this, he had gone back in time to buy a bunch of old computers. And he outlined which computers he was buying. And the reason why he had to buy them was because of the type of processor they had that they no longer use. They stopped using. And that processor is specifically, even like to quantum theorists today are like, oh yeah, you need that processor that we don't make anymore. And so there are people who actually invest a lot in these old computers. But it was all very odd, but there were things that were being said that sound to echo that notion of transmitting through time, of actually traveling through time physically. And it's like, this is so bizarre.
So bizarre.
Because it's kind of easy to get yourself into a state of fervor when you're putting together pieces and you have these pictures and you set them in place. You're like, oh, this looks like a picture of, time travel or something of that nature. But the fact that it was consistent, and then it also seemed so very dependent on us being where we were at the time that we were, utilizing the equipment we were using, because I wonder if we weren't just a relay station, that we weren't just sitting there specifically so that two other entities could speak to one another.
Cue the X-File theme. I love it. No, I love that you said that it was like the past, the present, then the future, because that kind of was our ghost
really
hunt.
Was. It was like the more we moved, the further we went into the future. And it was just very, very strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the Parajunkies, Pamela, on the live stream said, I keep thinking about this and what it meant. Same. I still am also trying to figure out what it meant. At the same time, though, I'm also trying to forget slightly how that happened because I'm terrified of it.
Megan is pointing out something because we were trying to come up with a solution because it sounded like something horrible was coming.
Yeah.
Right? That there was a cataclysmic issue, something terrible was happening. And we asked for a way to avoid it or a way to save ourselves. And the answer and response were the words love and art.
Oh,
love and art is the answer.
And Megan said it was the clearest thing that she heard was love and art. And it triggered something in my mind because I felt like I'd had this conversation before.
You want an answer?
Yeah. Yes. It's like more than anything. Are you telling me that you're the ghosts?
Love. Art.
Love,
That was super clear. Art.
love and art is the answer.
Where the notion of the salvation of the human race boils down to love and art. Just trying to figure out what this message is, where it's coming from, and how to utilize it. How do you implement love and art as a measure or a means to avoid some cataclysmic horror? But it was amazing to have a message so clear, because we were literally asking, how do we avoid it? And the answer was love and art.
Yeah, we were in the trenches of existential dread. And so it was pretty god awful.
And to hear from Megan's point of view, this happens with anybody who's in the method, listening. They don't think that what they're saying is necessarily anything.
Yeah, it
just feels random. And it just doesn't make sense, and they can't imagine what the other side of the conversation is when they're just saying these words. But yeah, that was one of the most intriguing series of Estes methods. All three of them were so very communicative. There's very, very call and response. We asked questions and got direct answers. Sometimes the answers came before the question was even finished.
Yep.
Yeah.
That happened numerous times when we were in the context of the question and the answer came. And so it's like, that's insane. So over and over again, all throughout that building, there seemed to be the ability to utilize whatever psychic energies there are to communicate in non-traditional means. So whether we're talking about the ghosts of the St. Francis Inn or just its paranormal energy, right? That we tapped into something that just by its continual use from the 1700s on, its reverence as a haunted location and a place where people believe that spirits can communicate, we found ourselves in unprecedented area.
Well, and let us not forget, we are in Florida, a state built on top of limestone, one of the best conductors of psychic energy in general. So it's like, it doesn't surprise me that we had intense interactions, but
it was insane.
I was not
an insane night. Yeah,
I was not expecting bizarre and, like Chris said, non-traditional types of encounters. That was not in my bingo card.
And you can find the entire live stream on Patreon.
Yes, you can. And you too can have existential dread.
Join us.
Yeah. But all right. Well, that was our investigation at the St. Francis Inn. Really wonderful property. And as I am assuming all of you are, since you're listening to this as spooky people, I highly recommend you go to visit it if you're ever in that area, because for one, amazing innkeepers. They were just wonderful people, very accommodating, and the hotel itself is great. But also, you never know what you will find paranormally in the space. So
go hunt it.
Yes, go hunt it and all of the places around it. But alrighty, y'all. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. I hope you enjoyed. If you're watching on YouTube or any of the platforms, honestly, make sure to like, subscribe, push all your buttons to let the algorithms that are always changing know that you're enjoying this content. And if you have a location that you'd like us to go visit one day, drop it in a comment. And maybe, just maybe, we will go. Who knows? But with that, my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And stay spooky, y'all.